All right, Bianca, welcome to the studio. How are you doing today?
Great. I'm doing great. How are you, Ryan?
I'm amazing. It's great to have you here. It's very rare that I get to have someone on the podcast who is as well traveled as you are and your sister, and it's great to kind of understand a little bit more of your story, how you've come from Austria and come to North America to chase this, acting, directing, writing dream.
Yeah, it is. It's very much the American dream. Like you come from nowhere and you go somewhere, right? That's
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Well, you're in good company, right? Because like I think there's a lot more Europeans working now in Hollywood productions. I
Yeah.
think like so many people now are like producing internationally, and they want more faces and more people from all over the world.
Yeah.
So I think like television and film is just getting way more international.
I 100% agree. I
Yeah.
think everything from, the talent, as my sister Dilara and I, we were both actresses first, and then we moved slowly into the film works and what it means to work behind the camera, how to create a movie and the writing process of it all. But I think equally you find behind and in front of the camera, European talent all over. And now that we move a lot of productions also overseas to Europe, because of tax incentives and because of the locations and, equipment that we can now have all over the world, really.
Yeah.
I think we are very, very fortunate and very blessed to be able to do it anywhere.
Yeah.
But I always say I go where work takes me. I think in the past maybe people haven't had that opportunity because there were kind of slots of where production was happening in the world. Well, now it's so equally spilled out almost.
It is. It's wild. I went to a event last year at the Producers or Directors Guild,
Nice.
and Denis Villeneuve was there, and he was talking about Dune 2.
Oh, great.
And the whole thing wasn't made in the United States, and no one, not a lot of people know this. So
Yeah.
all the indoor shots were done in Hungary on like what is known as like the world's largest soundstage, and it's just outside Budapest.
Yeah.
And then all the desert shots were all shot in Abu Dhabi, and both Hungary and the United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi have like massive film credits. So they shot the whole thing internationally. So it's amazing that like these blockbuster films are not even done at all in the United States.
Yeah, and that's really crazy. Good that you say that. I mean, there's some other movies, really great movies, that we would never imagine. I think it was Midsummer with Ari Aster who shot the whole thing as the story tells, in Sweden, and the movie was not even shot in Sweden because they have less tax incentives and like less support there. I think it was also Hungary
Yeah.
or somewhere well, more like mid Europe that they went to, and it was really interesting. So
Well, I mean, in Hollywood now they use Toronto, Canada for New York all the time. So
yes,
because of the tax credits from Canada and Ontario, and then also because the Canadian dollar's so low. So they'll shoot the interiors here in Los Angeles.
yeah,
And then for any exterior shots, everyone just goes up to Toronto or Vancouver and
exactly.
does everything there. It's wild.
And they have such a great, crew, team equipment. They're so, especially Toronto and Vancouver, they're so skilled because both coasts are kind of the hot pot of film in Canada, I would say. I mean, they do have more in the middle, also like Montreal, and they have the little pockets, but Dilara and I, we lived in Vancouver for 3 years, and it's the crew work is amazing there, and there's a lot. I mean, Percy Jackson, Disney is shooting up there. Ryan Reynolds is shooting a lot up in Vancouver. I mean, that's where he's from, I think, Vancouver. So it is definitely the Canadian dollar, and then tax incentives, and great animation work as well.
So it's great that you're not from LA, because almost no one on the podcast is actually from LA. Like everyone has seemed to like come here chasing dreams. So it'd be great to know. So where are you from?
Originally from Austria, Europe, and then my twin sister Dilara and I, we moved to Vancouver first. So that was kind of, yeah, 3 years ago. No, over 4 years ago. And we lived in Vancouver for 3 years, and that was kind of the first jump into Hollywood. We knew Hollywood would be the end goal, but Vancouver was in between, and it was great because Vancouver is a beautiful place. They have a lot of, it's a very great service industry to, Hollywood. They call it Hollywood North, and they have a great industry, and also by now a very great independent film scene of, independent filmmakers that make smaller movies into bigger film festival movies, and it's really great.
So you grew up in Austria,
Mhm.
and you're surrounded by like stunning nature in every direction. You've got mountains and lakes and rivers and very little pollution. I've been to Austria a few times. It's really, really pretty. I've never filmed there. But so you're there and you're like, you're 10 or 12 years old or something like this, and you decide like, okay, I want to be an actor. I want to be an actress.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, how do you get from Austria to Los Angeles? Because it's funny. Like, I don't know if you watched Arnold Schwarzenegger's
Documentary,
documentary. Yeah,
yes.
and it talks about like, okay, he went from Austria to Germany, right? He went to Munich. He goes, okay, I'm 1,000 kilometers closer to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And he just kept trying to work his way east, or sorry, work his way west, work his way west,
Yeah.
and then eventually he got to Los Angeles. But I'm just curious for you guys, like you're young, you have the freedom to kind of pursue acting, which is amazing. And how do you navigate growing up in Austria and trying to turn acting into an actual career?
That's such a great question, and I'm so glad that within everything you just said, you never mentioned Sound of Music. That's usually the first thing that people say. Austria's like, oh, first they say Australia, and then they explain, that we don't have kangaroos, and then they say, oh, Sound of Music. It's like, no, I mean, yes, but that's the mostly what people know. Yeah, we grew up in Austria, and like you said, it's actually interesting that you mentioned Schwarzenegger. He's definitely a great role model in many ways. He is I didn't know that he was in Germany in between. It's kind of in the back of my mind, it just came up again. We also went to Germany first, so I guess it's the first jump to get out of the country in a way.
I read that in your bio.
Yeah. They're like, see, they pursues similar steps. No, it was because we went to an acting school in Germany, and that was like, Germany has more options than Austria. Austria is much smaller, and so we went to that. And then once we landed there, we were studying for a year. Then COVID kind of happened, and then we also just knew we wanted to not just be in the European theater scene, but we wanted to learn about film and what it takes to make actually that a career and not just a passion. And in Austria specifically, it's sometimes still a little bit seen as, a hobby or something you do for fun, which you should always do. I think it should be the first thing, but then it's like, how do you survive with that thing? Except, having, three other jobs. Um,
You just jumped on something there. So like in my personal experience, the
Mhm.
people I've met who are from Austria are like really quite practical
Yeah.
and a little bit on the conservative side. So how did you get your parents to send you to Germany to acting school when you were a teenager?
Uh,
Because that seems like pretty risky, right?
In a way, yes. I mean, the good thing is we have so many siblings, so we're like, "Hey, you have 3 other kids at home, so don't worry. Some of them will make it."
Right.
But also, I think because Dilara and I, we were competitive dancers first. Our mom was a competitive dancer, so we moved into contemporary acrobatics dance. It was all on stage, so they knew that we loved the stage and performing. And then when we were kids, we were like 14 or something. We were like, "Oh, mom, can we move to Germany and go to these auditions and castings and become?" We saw all these really cool Constantine movies in Austria, and there were like a lot of kid actors, and we're like, "Want to be like that?" And our mom was like, "No, we can't just move to like we were 5 kids, we were 2 of 5 kids, so we're like, we can't just move the whole family to Germany." And so they were like, "But once you're old enough, you can explore whatever you like." And so we did that. So once we turned 18 and we were done with school, we had our final graduation, high school, and then we moved to Germany and luckily got into one of the schools, and then that's where we kind of continued growing, and that was then a jumping board into Vancouver. Though I have to say, I think um, we are also very grateful and very blessed. Our family's very because you mentioned conservative and like very practical, efficient. That's what mid Europe is. But they were very open to what we want to do, and I think our parents always told us, you can be whatever you want to be as long as you love doing it. There's no way that you're not getting there, and there's no way that you can't survive with it. Our mom always said, and she was also such a big advocate of treat everybody the same. There's no difference in what people are doing, what their life journeys are. So like if you want to be a cleaning lady, become the best cleaning lady you want to be. If you want to be an actress, become the best actress you want to be. If you want to be like work in a bank, become the best bank I don't know, like how bank officer. I don't know that you can be, and I think that's very true. And like there shouldn't be a difference. And I think as long as you follow what you're passionate about, that you always find a way. And there's so many, especially in this entertainment industry, there's so many closed doors sometimes, and then you get creative of like how can I go under, over, through the window, and whatever it is.
That's wild. So the school in Germany, was it like a university or was it,
Yeah.
yeah, so you studied
College.
like acting in college or university? Did coming like all the way to USC or NYU or AFI, did you guys know about those schools when you were 18? Because I'm just curious, like, because if you grew up in the United States, you know NYU, you know USC, and you know AFI.
Yeah.
And I was just curious if those were on your radar as you were kind of looking from Austria out into the world, trying to figure out your next step.
Funnily enough, not really. I mean, we knew about NYU and, some of the big ones, but really about AFI and then USC as well. I kind of, and UCLA, I just knew then, really moving to LA or like even Vancouver, you kind of know more about it. But we didn't, I think if we would have done more research into the study or into a university, but it was never in our mind, oh, we're going to go to university. It was more like we want to explore the field. We want to make our hands dirty and get right into it. So it was more like, how can we find a film set somewhere? It was more like that approach, maybe also because we didn't quite know how to get in. That's always the interesting thing, because film is still something that is very much not secluded, but it's still its own little pod. It's always, how do you get in? Some people are like, oh, because my dad is a gaffer, I kind of was born into it, or somebody in my field is in the industry and they recommended me to somebody, and then that's how I got my first sense of, the first taste of what I love about film. And we didn't have anybody in the family and are from Austria, so we didn't even know what's the approach. And then through little lucky steps, we got into it. And I think that's why studying overseas or like university was not the first go to.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like, it is such an interesting journey for someone like yourself who doesn't have an entry point into the industry. Like, there's so many nepo babies out there, like Ethan Hawke, one of my favorite actors, and I grew up on his movies when I was young. Like, right now his daughter, like Maya Hawke, is now starring in movies as well. And how amazing would it be to want to be an actress and have Ethan Hawke as your dad,
Yeah.
introducing you to all these directors and all these producers,
Yeah, I dreamed about it so many times and I can't even count it.
but then having to come, from kind of Central Europe, like Austria, and kind of make it on your own. The bar to entry is so difficult. And you're right, it's kind of like, what do we call it? Like a ring circle, or like its own kind of bubble. Like,
Hmm.
just trying to pop the bubble or get into the bubble is really difficult here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. But I think that helped us that we were in Vancouver first, because that bubble was different than the LA bubble. It's just it was very inclusive, and we first, how we got into it was like we got an agent in Vancouver. And she loved our theater work mostly, and that's how we got into, film work, and mostly an independent film scene, really. So what we worked as actors was mostly an independent film. And then as a side job, we were like, well, we want to still learn more about film, because just those different acting gigs, they don't give us that nurture, that craft that we really want to learn about filmmaking, and what is there, what is more. And so we started working as PAs on TV shows, and it was also very random how we got into it, because a friend of ours knew somebody that needed a PA for a day call, and that's how we got in. And then we, chatted with a lot of people, and that's, one thing into another. But I think because the industry is so unpredictable, and your journey, everybody's journey is so different. When I always say, like, you can look at 10 different actors you love and you can try to replicate every step, but it will be a different time now anyways. And also, like, just because those steps work for them, it doesn't mean it works for me. You have like, oh, maybe this actor went to NYU, and then there somebody spotted him, and then he got this commercial, and in a commercial then he got to meet this other guy, and that guy took him to an independent film, and now this, that's how maybe that person or that actor's career built. But that might not work for me if I now start go to NYU, because I hope those same steps will happen for me in the line. It probably won't happen. So I think that was a big shift for me, and I think also for Dilara to understand, everybody has their own journey, and, listen to your guts. And then, sometimes you have a decision to make, and you're like, should I do this or this? And then you're like, well, both are so, there's no right or wrong. I'm going to go with the one that feels right.
It's really true. It's so random. Like, so for
Yeah.
example, I can tell you this story. This is like my claim to fame. So when I was like, I guess I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, and my brother was 3 years younger than me. And he had a friend he played baseball and soccer with who was about the same age, so about 8. And our parents, my brother's friend and my mother, would take us to these castings all the time, right? So we were extras, and we played, like, we were in the crowd at a basketball game or at a baseball game, something like that. Because when they were filming in Toronto, we were there because I grew up in Toronto. So, and then eventually my brother and I kind of grew out of it. We started taking sports really seriously. We wanted to be professional athletes at one stage. But that little kid that was my brother's friend, who was the same age as him, he stuck with it.
Yeah.
And his mother just kept sending him to castings, kept doing it. And then he got a few little advertisements and commercials and stuff like that. And you know who that kid is?
Who?
Hayden Christensen. Do you know? Yeah, he did. He did the Star Wars movie, the second 3 Star Wars movies with Natalie Portman.
That is incredible. What?
Yeah, so it's just like that's just a family.
Wait, he's from Canada? I didn't know.
Yeah, he grew up in Toronto. He played soccer and baseball with my brother, and we knew him. Our families knew each other when we were really young, and and the fact that like my brother and I kind of walked away from the industry at like 10 or 11,
Yeah.
at such a young age, but he just kind of stuck with it, stuck with it, stuck with it, and then all of a sudden, he ends up doing working with George Lucas.
Yeah, Star Wars. Wow, that is amazing. Also so empowering because you hear again so many different stories, and I think also and Dilara says it all the time when I'm like, oh, nothing is working. She's like, no, 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 just listen. The thing is like as long as you stick with it, there's no way you're not getting there. It's not like if, it's more like when you get where you need to get.
Yeah, it's true. Like as long as you're doing it every day, you're still doing it,
Yeah.
and you still have the chance to make something that you're really proud of, or collaborate with people that you really respect and want to work with. And I think that's really the motivating factor. It's not like the end result, but the real key is, and Los Angeles is an expensive city. Like, how do you feed and shelter yourself while you wait?
Yes.
And of course, this is the great podcast for that because everyone has come from somewhere else, and
Yeah.
I've heard people catering and people being in waiters and people working part-time at insurance companies, all waiting for their break or waiting so they can kind of sustain their own lifestyle,
Yeah.
and do what they want to do, which is, be in the movies.
That's so true. And I think what Dilara and I, because I think we come from Austria, and for us, I think personally, I consider myself a very restless person. I can't. I'm very like if I sit down for too long, I'm like, what am I doing? I need to do something. Like it doesn't even matter what it is. So I think that the whole process, maybe not a good reason to go into acting for that, but because you mentioned this, a lot of like waiting or like a lot of waiting maybe also for the right moment. But I think what we started doing is not using the time to wait, but using the time to be active in a different way. That's also why we did our first the movie that just recently was released, our first debut feature, because we were well, we can use that time and keep auditioning, which we do anyways. Doesn't matter if we write another movie on the side or if we are making a movie or just experiment. That doesn't exclude the other one, but it is something where you can kind of nurture your creative soul in a way.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like, I had a one actor here on the podcast last year, and he was actually getting roles, and he was quite successful, and he was making good money, but the jobs were only coming like once every 6 or 8 months, and he was just bored out of his mind. And so he didn't want to do he was a waiter, so he didn't want to do waiting jobs anymore. So in order to like feed his creative soul, he started doing social media content,
Yeah.
and he got so big on social media, on YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that, that he quit acting because he's making like hundreds of thousands.
What? Yeah. And it's
So,
kind of related. Like, like that's actually good because he's now the social media. You can, depending what you're doing, those little, comedic, videos and whatever it is, you can, nurture that. That's great.
but just out of the boredom of having to wait between jobs, right? Like it's just because I don't think, because from what I gather from you and your sister, like you guys seem to be quite excited about every facet of production. Like I noticed that you like writing, you're trying to produce movies, you're also trying to act, you're also acting. So you're trying, when you do a lot of different things, you can stay busy a lot easier.
Mm.
But this guy I was talking about, he didn't like writing or producing or directing. He just wanted to act,
Yeah.
but he didn't have enough time on camera, so he
Yeah.
just turned the camera on himself and
Yeah.
was at home and doing whatever, and ended up being a huge star out of it.
I love I mean, I love that. What a great, jump into, get your side hustle into, like the main thing. And I agree. And I think at the end of the day, all creatives are storytellers. I think it's so easy to, put things into boxes. I think a great actor is a great storyteller. A writer is a great storyteller. Are you as an actor also a great writer? Maybe as a, great writer, you're also a great actor or director. I think there's a lot of, we have so many people in the industry like, Greta Gerwig. She went from, acting into writing, directing, or you have what is her name? Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think she just came out with the new movie Bride, or that's gonna be released in 2026. And I just knew her as an actress, and then I realized when I did research, she's like writing all these amazing movies that she's also now directing and producing. So there's a lot of those overlaps, and I think more and more people, maybe out of necessity, because as an actor, like you said, you get hired for those certain projects, and then you want to maybe do more. Um, Actors start writing and producing their own stuff, maybe out of the joy and the passion and the interest that shifts. I don't know, but definitely for Lara and me, acting has always been the main focus. And I think also that was, one of the reasons we made our first movie. We were very interested in those characters, and then went from there.
That's wild. So you grow up in Austria. You guys are both dancers. You love the stage. you start theater acting. Like, how did you realize, or when did you realize, like movies are the way to go, or you wanted to really kind of focus on movie acting? Like, when did that happen? Because you could have a great stage career. Like, you could have gone to London in the West End, you could have gone to Broadway. What made you want to switch from being a theater actor to being in the movies?
I think growing up, like we never had cable TV. We never had, any of like TV channels or like also some people when I ask them, like, do you like movies more or TV shows? Like some people, that's what you grow up with, you're most comfortable with, and that's maybe what you're drawn to. And we didn't have that. We had like our parents were big on collecting videos and DVDs. I mean, I never had Blu-rays, but we had DVDs.
And you had the mountains.
The mountains. We had a little cottage in the forest. No, but it was very beautiful, and we had like these beautiful cupboards and shelves full of DVDs like that we had all sorted by name and everything. So I think growing up and having that as a sacred thing almost because during the week we're not allowed to watch TV or like DVD. So we had like the weekend kind of where all of us came together and watched, one movie a night like over the weekend. So we were all, there's 5 kids, 2 parents, and everybody's kind of trying to figure out one movie that we can watch for a night. It was something very special and very family time, and I think that what made movies so special for us personally. And then I just love the magic of movies because you can theater is beautiful. That's where we grew up, and it's where I think we will always go back to because it's also such a craft builder in between. But I think movies is just like there's magic in, every stage, the sound, the score, the writing, I mean what we can do nowadays with visual effects is amazing. So
Mhm. It's such a big production, isn't it? Like
yeah.
getting a movie done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely takes a village to make a movie. They say that all the time, and it's really true.
Mhm.
And I think you can make an amazing movie with very little people, and you can make an amazing movie with a lot of people, and it really depends on the project.
Does does so. What was your time like in Canada? I mean, I'm curious. Like, you guys kind of trained in Germany, and then you're like, okay, we got to get to North America.
Yeah.
But your first stop was in Vancouver. You said you managed to get an agent, which was great. You said you were doing some PA work as well. Like, what was the Vancouver experience like? And then what made you want to leave Vancouver and come down here?
Yeah, Vancouver was definitely the first step into the North American continent, and it was a very interesting shift. I think the
Was,
shift.
was it your first time to North? Like, had you guys
Yeah.
traveled here before?
No,
Like,
no, no, no. It was the first time.
that's a big jump.
We were like 19. Yeah, we were like 19, and Dilara didn't know. I have to give kudos to her because she was doing most of that research into, how to get a visa, how to, do that, all the travel documents. And it sounds so, okay, it sounds so easy, but it is, um, if you don't speak that language or not as perfectly as a, native, you are, translating everything and hope you do the right thing. And once you get into the country, even we had so much great support from our family, but I can't if my car breaks down or if I like get into a scam or whatever it is, I can't just call dad and he will be there. Like it's a 12-hour flight, right? So there was a lot of those things of we had each other all the time, which was great, but it was a lot of figuring things out and kind of getting your hands dirty and just getting into the thick of it.
And what was the Canadian experience like? Did people treat you nicely? Like,
Oh yeah.
was it like, did you get to Vancouver and have the chance to kind of like work right away?
Yes. So we came during it was like a weird time because it was still COVID, all those things were happening. So we were very lucky that we got the visa because very little people got at that time a visa because nobody wanted to travel. And then we got there and we started random jobs in the beginning. It was like had a cleaning job and a preschool teacher assistant and at a restaurant and everything. And it was an open visa, so you can work anything. And then, through a friend, we got into the PA work. And yes, you mentioned our agent that we got pretty fast. We sent out tons and tons of, our packages to agents. And um, one of them was the agent that we still have. And she was amazing, or she's amazing. And she took us on, and that's how we started slowly auditioning. But it was a different language, and again, like, I think in the beginning, because you mentioned how was Canada, were they nice and everything? Absolutely. So, I think one of the most vivid experiences I still have in my head is when we came and we, moved into our little apartment and, we didn't have any furniture in it, so we did all marketplace, but we didn't have a car, so we just went all over town to get tables and stuff and then brought it home, and I remember I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get this girl in marketplace has, like, a table and all the 4 chairs together, I'm gonna grab them," but I didn't have a car. So in my head, it was like, "Well, you can fold the chairs, and I'm just gonna carry it home," which I did. But I had, like, I remember having the table over one, shoulder and 4 chairs over the other shoulder. and then trying to figure out how the SkyTrain works with like the card and the ticket and everything. And this Canadian man came and was like, "Oh, can I help you?" All these things, and like I was always told in Europe, if somebody asks you for help or wants to help out, it's usually because they rob your bank card or something. And so I was like, "No, no, I'm fine." And then he actually helped me to get into the SkyTrain because I had no idea. But later I was like checking my pockets, like, is everything still there? Did you steal something from me? Until I realized it happened more and more, and I was like, oh no, Canadians are just literally very nice people. There's a lot of Irish, a lot of Australians in Vancouver,
Mhm.
and it's such a multicultural, multilingual town also. So I really, really loved it, and I'm so grateful that that was our first stop before going to the States, because we could practice our English, we could practice kind of navigating, and then going down to LA was an easier jump.
Yeah, speaking about language, like you guys grew up in Austria, so you speak Austrian, and then you educated yourself in Germany, so you speak German.
Mhm.
So what's it like reading a script in English? Like how do you work through that? Like, are you reading it in English and processing it in English? Or are you reading it in English and translating it into Austrian or German and then
Yeah.
trying to figure out like what the emotions are? Like I'm always curious when you meet like people who are multilingual
Yeah.
because some people will read something and then just translate it or it's everyone has a different process.
So true, so true. Do you speak French because you're from Toronto, or
No, so the big secret is almost no one in Canada speaks French. But we all have to learn it. So we all
Yeah.
have to learn it, and then you never if you don't live in like Montreal or Quebec City
Right.
or Ottawa and work for the federal government, you don't use French ever. In the rest of Canada, like there was no French in Vancouver,
Vancouver,
and
yeah.
Toronto's the same. There's no. So it's gone. My French is long gone.
Okay, yeah. Probably muscle memory. If I would start speaking French with you, you're like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll pick it up."
My Chinese is better than my French. I lived in China for 18 years.
Which is so amazing. Gosh, I looked at your shows and what you did there. I was like, that's a bigger jump than I think Austria to Vancouver. Because going to China, like, I don't even know how you learn that language. Like, because English is still, we learn it in school, so we you have that, and then you're learning more vocabulary, and you work on your accent so people understand you actually.
Yeah,
But it's different to like Chinese, that's for sure.
China was a big leap.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a lot about that.
Okay.
But so what was the question?
Just you and how dealing with English scripts and working in English was because I mean, it was your first step. Like, sometimes you have a lot of Europeans and they come to the US with their family a few times over the years, or maybe they study at a US university and then they come into the arts or the entertainment world. But you guys, like your first stop was Vancouver.
Yeah.
And obviously, like for people out there who don't know, like people in Western Europe, they do learn English in school and they
Yes.
are pretty fluent in English. So you can get around all of Europe and especially Austria and most of Germany using English.
Yeah.
But still coming across to Vancouver and then having to work in English, that's a little bit of a
Very
yeah.
different. Yeah, very different. And I think also, especially reading a script, because it's all kind of technical. And I remember when we went to the first acting classes, there was a lot of that, natives would, or like English speaking people would just, get out of the script by just reading. It's like, oh, this person, I would do this acting choice because I know that this person is, mad or angry. And I was like, how do you know that? Like, how do you read that out? It's like, oh, because they say these, and it was mostly because there's certain phrases that you use as not as slang, but you just even "what's up" or something, those little things. It's like it's not "what's up there," it's like "what's up," but it's like those little things that you might not learn in school, because not it's just rules of grammar and vocabulary, and it's like those like natural things almost that we use in just in society that we didn't have. And I think those things were very kind of something you had to get used to. And I think I personally always felt a little bit left behind, because I was like, well, I have to catch up on all these things that other people have just because it's their mother tongue. And I think that makes you a little bit more ambitious, maybe, or a little bit more determined, because you see, like, oh, I feel like I'm the same age, but I have to catch up on 10 years that I didn't have in that language or in that profession or whatever it is. So I think there's always two ways of seeing it, but I always loved that I came from a different country needing to learn it, because then there's a really great filmmaker friend of mine. He's from Sweden, and he said, "We artists make the best art if we are pressed against a wall." It's
Yeah.
very, it's very brutal, but I think it's true. Like sometimes you need to learn something, so you actually learn it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
And the harder it is, the faster you learn it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you about Chinese probably same.
Yeah.
You're like, if it's survival, you got to do it.
Absolutely. So you did 3 years in Vancouver, and what made you then decide to make the leap to Los Angeles? What was the key kind of trigger or factor there?
Several things. I mean, Vancouver was always, we knew we wanted to go there, explore it, and we first thought it was just like first year and see how it goes, and then we'll come back to Germany and keep studying and finish the school or whatever it
No
is.
way.
And
No
that
way.
was like the thing we put out there to our family and everybody else.
Yeah. We'll come back.
To not get a heart attack. But I mean, we love Vancouver, and then also we knew the first year, even though we didn't get too much into film yet, we knew we were so close to getting into it. So we were like, just another year. And then in that year, we actually got into film. And then the second year after, we made our first movie. So it was a step by step, year by year, progression of our work. And LA was, or like America was always the end goal, but we knew that Vancouver was almost a springboard, and we still go back and forth. We can still work in both countries, so it's not lost or anything.
Sure.
And I think then another reason was you need a visa to come to the States. We got the O1 visa, and once we got that, we were like, well, now we're allowed to go there, so let's go. So I think that was another reason. And then we did in the last year in Vancouver, the sort of third year, we made our first feature. So we also knew we have a really, really great mentor that we met in that last year when we were in Vancouver, or the second year. His name is Michael Goy. He's from America. He's an amazing, amazing mentor and director, writer, cinematographer. He was doing most cinematography of American Horror Story.
Mm.
Um, and he was also saying, like when you come to America, it's always good to have a calling card, something you have in your hands. And we knew having that movie done, even though it hasn't been released at that point, we knew we had something in our hands we could use to come to the States, not just coming here and hoping. I actually have sort of a like resume or something in my hand that I can use on.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, like looking back at my career and the way things have developed too, like you always get more traction and you always get more responses from people when you've made something.
Yeah.
And whether you're an actor and you were part of a project, or whether you're a producer or a director and you spearheaded and ran with a project that you kind of created or developed, or a writer,
Yeah.
it's way more easier to knock on doors and get responses from people when they know that you've already made something at such a young age. And then
Yeah.
also too that the fact that you've made something at such a young age kind of proves to the fact that you're going to be around for a while, and this is what you're dedicating your life to. And then all of a sudden that makes you a more reliable partner no matter what happens moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And also because you mentioned the joke before about, nepotism and, having a family member that is in the industry. And as much as I wish for that, I think because growing up, I was always like, oh, I wish I was in America and I was born, as a Disney kid and, had all these great experiences as a kid already. But I do think sometimes it steals somebody's childhood. And sometimes, like you said, like you and your brother, you were done at a certain point because you have it. And so you're like, okay, I experienced that. Maybe I don't need it anymore. Right. And I think not having it for such a long time, really until we were 18, and we knew far before that we wanted to do, and kept us, it's almost, having a racehorse in the gate, and you just keep it in bed, keep it in bed. And once you release the gate, you're like, vroom, you're just like rushing out. And I think that was definitely for us. It gives you just so much more drive because, like, finally can do what I want to do. So what other people might be like, even in the PA world where you were standing in the rain for 15 hours, or like we had a Canadian winter in Vancouver, not really, but we had really cold winters in Vancouver, and you were standing outside for like 18 hours because they go overtime, and you were just loving it, while other people, would maybe complain about it, or it's like, well, this is underpaid. I think all these things you're not taking for granted, because like, well, but I can be on a film set. So what do I have to complain about, even if I don't feel my toes anymore? So I think that's, yeah.
Yeah. And what's it been like coming to LA? Like, how long have you been here, and what's the response been thus far to your work and just trying to meet people? Like, what's it been like?
Yeah, it's been great. I think, yeah, America was always the end goal. So I think when we came down to LA, I always thought it was more similar to Vancouver, but it was very different energy, and the weather is nice and it's sunny all the time. Um, uh,
Except for today. It's
I
kind of creepy
know.
today with the clouds, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very nostalgic. I was telling Dilara before, I was like, "Oh, do you think it's gonna rain?" And we're like, "Please, please, please let it rain." But yeah, no, it's very beautiful and very different to Vancouver for sure. But I think what is so great about LA, or America, but LA because it's such a hot pot for film, is that a lot of the core decisions are still being made here. A lot of, the studios, the executive heads, the writers' rooms are still mostly here, even if they shoot somewhere else. And I think that's really great if you want to, because for us, it's always about how can I learn more and advance more. And I think naturally very curious people. So when I meet a new person, I'm just like asking so many questions because I want to learn about it. And I think that's a good spot to be in LA because there's so many people that, love giving advice, a lot of people that are in the entertainment industry somehow, and you can always, take and what you need. But it's really, I think that was really empowering. And also so many outlets and resources. We have, Film Independent, and we have like so many screening opportunities. I mean, there's like those most amazing movies that I remember as a kid. You look at magazines or like newspapers, and you have like the Chinese theater and these premieres and stuff. And now I just walk by and it's like, oh, my friend is in this movie, and I just walk on, and it's like it's just so it's almost not real. It's like how I came from a small town where you see all these things on the newspaper and on TV, and like it was very special, and it is very special still. And then you go into it, and it's all around the corner.
It's pretty wild, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
walking through like Los Angeles and Hollywood and Beverly Hills and seeing the same scenes you see in all these different movies for the last like 100 years. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
Yes, it is crazy.
Now, I mean, how has it been trying to come here and work? Because like we said, like there's a bit of a glass ceiling, and it's funny because I kind of I kind of liken Los Angeles and working in the entertainment industry as kind of being like a famine mentality. And what I mean by that is people are really afraid to help other people because they think that eventually it might take away from them. So there's a real idea here that, if I help someone else and I'm an actor and they're also an actor, that somehow there's not going to be enough for me if I help them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you'd think of as a famine, right? Because everyone's just trying to collect all the food for themselves
That's
just to survive. And I always kind of think like LA has this real mentality where people just don't really want to go out on a limb and help people out, or they really don't want to try to help make introductions because they think like, oh, well, somehow that's going to hurt me at some stage or take a job away from me someday. But what you really need to understand is like now with the internet and all these streaming partners and all these corporate opportunities and advertising, like there's enough for everyone if you're serious, right? And if you want to be in this business for the long term. But I'm just curious, like what it was like trying to network and meet people in those, in those first few months.
That is so great, and so many great things that you just, touched upon there. It's so interesting that you say this, and also what you call it, what phantom,
Famine. So like
famine.
when there's not enough food to go around,
Yeah.
right? Because people just start hoarding for
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've never heard that, but it's a great expression. And it's very interesting that you say that because I always felt that Europe was a little bit more, um, a little bit more isolated. The creative process was more isolated. It was more like keeping to yourself, doing your own little thing, and then it was like being a writer. I think in Europe, and some filmmaker from Norway said that. No, what is the name of the director who did The Circle? Yes, Kurt Aslan. There she is. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, Kurt Aslan. I think he said that in Europe it was very. He felt writing was very isolated, and then coming to America it was much more open. And I had a little bit the same feeling, even though we didn't do writing in Austria at all. That it's I felt more included here, but it also depends on maybe a little bit which crowd, because most of our friends are actually not actors, but a lot of them are producers, or a lot of them are craftsmen, like a lot of DPs and cinematographers and gaffers and so on. So I think it's probably also depends on that, because if I'm as an actor, have friends that are cinematographers, nobody's gonna fight for the same job.
Right.
So I think it definitely depends on which crowd you're at or with. And networking, it's such a big name. And in theater school, I remember in Germany, they taught us all about networking, and how you have to be, like you have to make sure that you stand out, so people look at you and look at your work. And I was like, this is the most terrifying thing, and I think I hate it because I don't want to stand out. I just want to sit in the back corner, watch everyone learn from it, and then do my own shit.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that phrasing or what it really meant, and then coming to LA, we just went to a lot of networking events, or a lot of events, or like jazz bars and stuff like that, and we got to meet people. And I think Dilar and I, again, like we're very curious people, so often I didn't want to share about anything about myself, because it's like, what do I have to share? Like I want to know more about you. And I think that made networking, if you want to call it like that, or just connecting with people, or getting to know people, so much more interesting,
Mhm.
because I get to learn so much from your journey and your experiences, and all the people that I met have been in the States for much longer than me, so we could learn from that. But it was very different energy for sure, because I think what it was more in all these events, and it depends which events you go to, was more like what what are you looking for? It was always like, what is your value? What do you have? What do I have? And how can we help each other? Or what can I gain from you? And I think that was always a little bit the dance around it. It was very interesting.
Yeah. It's a tough game, isn't it? Like you got to figure out, who you can meet, who can maybe support your business or your career moving forward, and then once you've kind of moved a few steps forward, then how you can help someone else and how you can
Yeah.
pay it forward and spread the love, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone can use a hand and use an introduction now and then, every now and then. So it's
Yeah.
wonderful to if someone helps you out, that you can help someone out at a later date.
I 100% agree. And I think it's always, especially when you start small, which I think everybody does, is that you not forget the people that help you out in the beginning. Because when you are, like a nobody, or if you just start out, or if you try something and maybe completely fails, and there's still people that believe in you or help you out or give you a hand, or provide the resources. Like, these are, as you move along the steps, I always want to keep them in the back of my mind. I almost like, put each of them in a nice little box in my brain, to just be like very grateful for that, because nobody, um you don't have to do it. And it's really great to be, to have a supportive team, and then also never forget them. And always, that's why Dilara and I are so grateful for all our mentors. And it's interesting when you said, it's a dance of, what do they need, and then how can you give back? I think not searching for it was a key moment for me, because if you search, when I started searching, oh, I'm looking for a person who can do this for me, or a person that can help me out. I know what I need, but I'm not searching for it, because I think then I get too clingy, maybe. Like, I think it's just letting go and knowing, like, I'm working towards these things, and I know the right people will come into my world to, support with that. And I know that I can give these things back, because now I learned all these things.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Like, especially when you've made something, right? Like,
Yeah.
once you've made something and you've kind of put it out into the world, people will see it, and then people who want to work with you will contact you.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I found a lot of my collaborators, because I ran my own production company, and all the TV shows I've ever made, I own them, and I created them myself. I produced them, directed them, and hosted them.
Yeah.
So all my cinematographers and editors and everyone that I ever worked with, they reached out to me
Hmm.
first. And then, maybe they were a student and they wanted to interview me. And then when they graduated, I would hire them,
That's
or
amazing.
something like that. Because if someone comes to you and wants to be part of what you're doing,
Yeah.
the connection and the respect and the ability to work together is so much better than trying to take someone who may be a few years ahead of you,
Yeah.
who will look down at what you're doing instead of, trying to help you more, if that makes sense.
It makes so much sense. And I think there's always exactly the same, mindset here. I think, going in for somebody, it's the same when you make a film project and you're like, oh, these people want to come on board because they really love the show, the concept, the script, or these people ask first for the money. I think there's like this big difference, because money will always come. But, if you're in for that first, like, you're not going to get rich with this, maybe. So I think that's a very good approach. Like you just said, the people that come to you is usually the people that you resonate with, and that you have a long-term relationship with.
Yeah, for me, it was just people that wanted to travel the world with me. So I think that was kind of also part of the selling point, because we were always in a different country every week or every month. Yeah.
Which is a lot. Like, also as a crew member or a cinematographer, you have to be open to that. Like, yeah, I'm not going to see my family or whatever it is. Kind of leaving that behind for whatever time it is you travel.
Yeah, there was no family. Like, the family life was not an option. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was pretty rough. But we
Oh.
we were so as an example, in one year, in 2019, we did 10 expeditions in 10 countries in 10 months.
Wow.
And each expedition was like about 2 weeks long. So we were 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off on 5 continents for 10 months.
Wow.
But we did like 5 seasons like that. But 2019 was by far the busiest. Yeah.
Which one was that?
So that was, yeah.
Was,
So like
was it Extreme Treks? No, there was a different
2019 was actually Expedition Asia, but like for Extreme Treks. So like one season of Extreme Treks, we filmed in like Russia, Iceland,
one.
Laos, Papua New Guinea, Bolivia, Argentina, Jordan, and Uganda.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
a nice
just
storybook that you have, like most people don't, especially if you're in the States, you usually don't get out of the country. You have like all the continents already in your pocket.
yeah.
Amazing.
South America's close though.
Yeah.
And we're coming into the winter, so like I go to Ecuador next week to climb, and then I'll spend most of the winter in South America climbing.
That's amazing. Are you doing free climbing, or are you?
No, I always use ropes and stuff, but we just I'll be making a lot of like different filming projects down there, just to get just to get out of here and to
Yeah, and also use
involve.
the nature. I feel like so many people like I've looked in a lot of your shows, and you're a photographer also. You have an eye for that as well. But I think that's just I don't know. Like if I don't have the opportunity to travel there, like money, time, or whatever it is, to see that and capture that in a show is so amazing. I think.
Yeah. I always say that my target audience is like men with families that don't have any time or energy or money to travel, who are just too busy like being husbands and parents and taking their kids to soccer or baseball and who just like want to sit down on a Sunday, have a beer and watch someone ride a motorcycle around India or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That is so true. It's like, oh, I wish I could do that, but I have my life here.
pretty much. So, so what's it like? Are you here for the long term? Like, is this like you have any grand visions of going back to Europe, or is this like I'm going to spend the next 50 years of my life making movies in Hollywood?
Definitely. I mean, that's definitely the goal. I think I would say I go wherever work takes me. And that's, if you make your own movies, that could be anywhere. If you are acting, that could be anywhere because they're shooting anywhere. And, you get cast probably somewhere in the States and then, they ship you out wherever they're shooting. So I think I wouldn't, I think in the beginning when I came here, is like the LA was always the end goal. But if I now had, like some big theater production that goes for a year in New York, I wouldn't have a problem moving over there. Or if I book a movie that shoots in Australia for a year or for like a couple months, then I'm gonna go over there. So I think it's not as as restricted anymore that I had it in my head. It has to be. But yes, definitely. I think the film industry, that's all what we came in for, Dilara and I. And I think I have, scratched a little bit the surface of the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much underneath it. So I think there's always more to learn. And we are very passionate about creating our own projects and bringing that in as actors, but also as, like writers and filmmakers. So I think that is an ongoing thing. And it's also the great thing is it's like writing a book. You can write a book, you have it done, but then you learn so much about what you could do better for the next one, so you can make another one, and you learn more, and you can build it bigger and expand your team and all of that. So I think it's a work in progress all the time, and that's what I love. It's so great to have something you're like, I love this so much, and I feel like I can do it until I die because there's never a stop to it. Because there's never, even if you finish a movie, there's like something else I can do.
And it's never done, and it's never perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I love. It's very flawed and it's very human. And I think we call every movie that everything we did, the creative project we did so far, we just called it an experiment. Because in the end of the day, you can make an experiment, you can put all the right things in, and it could still explode in your face, right? You don't know. Sometimes it's like a little bit too much of this, a little bit too little of this, and it just like doesn't work. Or it does work and you didn't even know. So I think that's the beauty of filmmaking.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you made a feature film.
Yeah.
So what's the name of the film?
The movie is called Day of a Lion, and it's an art house psychological thriller that we shot in Vancouver. It was like this beautiful location. It's like this British house. It was actually built by an Irish guy in 1860, I think, and it's like really like this tall house built into the sky in Vancouver, though, in New Westminster, and we shot it there. And yeah, it was just released this August 2025 in America, like North American release, America and Canada. And we are right now in conversations for international sales and hopefully get it out so our family can watch it in Europe. That would be nice. And yeah, it was our first project and was very much we co-wrote the script and co-produced it, and had a lot of amazing, because you talked about people that come your way when you have a project, and it was very much the same with Day of a Lion. It was people that we worked on short movies with, or people that just came out of film school, or that we knew through like an independent project that we were on, and they were very, very excited about the script or about just our work that we were doing, and so they kind of jumped on board first for the project and for the passion, and that made this project possible on a like shoestring budget, really.
So this is amazing to me. Like you come to Vancouver, first time to North America, first time to Canada, first time to the United States. You get some odd jobs, you get an agent, and then you're like, okay, we're ready for our first feature. So that's fucking amazing. First of all, congratulations to you and your sister. But that's some real passion to
Yeah.
to get that done. Like I mean, when you were writing it, when you were putting it together, like, did you have any idea if you were gonna maybe get a distribution deal up front, or were you thinking about having to go through festivals? Like, what was kind of the distribution discussion while all this was happening? Because obviously, filmmaking costs a lot of money,
Yeah.
and sometimes you can offset the budget by signing a distribution deal up front. But if you're going to go through the film festival circuit, you have to put all the money up front on your own or have financiers do that. So it's a real difficult thing to make a feature film. And
Yeah.
the fact that you guys have done it so early in your careers
Yeah.
is speaks volumes about your passion and your dedication to the craft. So I'd just love to know, like, from a filmmaker to a filmmaker, can you kind of walk me through how that whole thing came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it, and Dilara, feel free to jump in if there's anything I'm missing here. But I think first and foremost, I think it was great that we always have each other. So it's like a lot of accountability that we have here. Um, uh, and the thing was, I think a lot of it from my end came also out of frustration because it was like as an actor, you got like those one liner or like those cheerleader one number one and hooker number three, and you were like these roles are not satisfying me as an actor at all. And coming from theater, and we did theater in between in Vancouver as well, there was like just there's so many rich characters in this world and so many rich stories that nobody's telling, so why aren't we not putting that together? So we wrote the script pretty fast because we wanted to shoot it in the winter break, which we didn't end up shooting in. And so we wrote the script together, and we at that time we were also PAing, so we would come home after 15 hours, and then just we still have we're at home at 10, we still have like a couple of hours till midnight, and then we can go to set again. So we would.
Can I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
So first of all, this is amazing. You just glossed over this whole thing, but to me, this is spectacular. So every young person who wants to be an actor can learn from what you guys just did.
Yeah.
You were so kind of uninterested in a lot of the acting jobs that you were getting,
Yeah.
like hooker number three or whatever, right? And these are not challenging roles. They're not kind of testing your abilities or your passions. So what did you do? You wrote your own roles for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that that is fucking brilliant because not enough people take that initiative
Yeah.
to write the the character that they're perfect for
Yeah.
or that they actually want to play.
Yeah.
And I think so many actors are so afraid of doing that and putting pen to paper. And you ran over that whole bit really quickly, but I just wanted to I wanted to draw it out because that was so beautiful. And like it happens a lot. Like for me, I did a television show a long time ago and it ended up being like complete propaganda.
Yeah.
It was a show for one of the big broadcasters, but they had gotten government funding from a country, and I went in there thinking I was doing an adventure show, and it ended up being like a propaganda marketing piece. And I was so turned off by the experience that I said I was never going to work for anyone ever again. And I just started making my own shows after that because I was so kind of I guess I was just I was kind of like lied to, disgusted a little bit, and I just felt so frustrated by it that I just said like that's never happening again.
Yeah.
And I just started just making my own, and that was kind of the trigger that hit me.
Yeah.
And it's funny that the trigger that hit you was just getting these shitty roles, one-liners, and blah blah blah, and being like, no, like I've got more
Yeah.
inside. Like we're gonna have to write our own characters. Like we're gonna have to write our own story.
Yeah.
That initiative to me is everything.
I love that you just said that, and that's what I say. I think I mentioned it before. Sometimes it needs those inconveniences, or it needs those pressed against the wall moments that you really wake up. Because sometimes you almost get into a hamster wheel, or you get too comfortable, and then you're like, "Oh, everything is running smoothly. It's fine. Whatever we're doing right now, you're just navigating and flowing." And I think it's always good to take, just the boats in your hand, and you just like you start rowing. I think and I think, yeah, again, like just sitting around and waiting was not an option for us, and just taking those roles like as they come sometimes was also not an option. And then it was really what do we have to lose really? If we write something, it's not good, then we're not gonna make it. If we have people that are interested and we make it, then we have a movie, and then we have that experience. It was not, and because you mentioned, did we have a distribution deal in advance? Did we think about all these things? Not at all. So we didn't. We went in very blindly, also because we just didn't know. We didn't went to film school. We didn't go to any, we didn't have that knowing what a producer does or any of those things. When we really learned that was when we worked on sets as a PA. And at that time, also when we started writing that script, we worked on the Disney Percy Jackson TV show that they're still shooting up there. It was the first season, and that was one of the most amazing sets because it was a big set with everybody involved, and from the top, John Steinberg and Dan Schatz, who are also great mentors. They were just, it was tickling down to the bottom. Like everybody was so nice and lovely and so open to help, and I think we soaked a lot up on that set and just be a sponge, and I think that's where we learned. And then move that into production and just, triangles where you're like, okay, we don't know what's the right way. I think sometimes it can give you freedom. If you don't know what's the right way to do, you're just gonna do it your way and hope that's the right way. And I think that can give you freedom because I think sometimes if you go, I remember in Germany when you go to an acting school, they tell you a lot of this, what this is how it goes. This is the right way. Maybe this is how it has been done the last 20 years. So this must be the right way. And you're kind of locked in that box of this is how it's supposed to be. But if I don't know how it's supposed to be, well, then I can do it anyway, right?
The English term for that is ignorance is bliss.
Really, that's something you say.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, because if you don't know what you're doing, you won't overthink it.
Yeah.
And if you don't overthink it, then you can actually just let yourself act
Yeah.
and let yourself create.
Yeah.
And you don't overthink it and you don't overstress and you don't have all this anxiety and all this buildup because things aren't going the way that they normally would because you don't know how they normally would go. And you're just focused on the story and you're focused on the characters. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And I think the goal for all filmmakers is to be able to create with that freedom of pure ignorance where you don't know what else everyone else is doing, but you're just focused on the scene, or you're just focused on the writing and the acting and the lighting and that's it, and everything else is over your head or gone, right?
Yes.
And you don't have to worry about craft services, and you don't have to worry about the producer who's pissed off at you because you're 4 days late or whatever. You're just in it. I think that's the best way to make stuff.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. And it gives you also like confidence. I think there's this saying, in America or in English in general, fake it till you make it, which I'm like, it's like, I don't know if I fully agree, but I agree that, sometimes you have to fake maybe confidence to just go and do it because, where else do you get it from?
You don't have to fake it anymore. You released your first feature film. You, you've done something that
But the
like,
pressure's on. But yeah, it is, knowing just being comfortable in knowing that I think it's the same for acting probably, just knowing that it's gonna happen. And with that project, we didn't have any distribution deal. We didn't know we didn't even know what you do after a movie once it's done. You're like, now I have a movie and now I'll put it in my shelf or something. But it was nothing, nothing further planned. And it was very lucky how we got to make the movie because we worked on Percy Jackson, and there was a couple crew members that read the script as well, and they just really loved it, and they jumped on board because we didn't shoot it in winter break. We actually shot it in March, and a couple months later, and the Percy Jackson team was wrapping in January, so a couple people were basically on hiatus for like 4 or 5 months. So they were like, "Oh, just gonna jump on your set for those 12 days that we shot it for." And helped out. So that was amazing. So a lot of it was like it was self-financed on our end, savings that we had put to the side from PA work and stuff we had saved from before. And we always say, Dilara's always joking. She's like, people in our age usually save that money for a car, but we saved it for a movie. And I think that was just like more important to us than, having a car.
Yeah.
Or anything else.
Material goods are useless.
Car just breaks down after a couple, years, but the movie, it stays.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like I had to finance my first adventure television show by because no one wanted to work with me. Like I thought it'd be pretty interesting. Like, here I was, I had a 10-year journalism experience in China. I worked for like the New York Times and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then print publishing really died in around 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
After the 2008 financial crisis, print publishing died completely. And they didn't have this, they didn't have their online business set up properly at that stage, like where they were getting subscriptions and things like this. It's much better now, but the journalism is much worse now. So it's a little bit.
You're good at you gonna.
I could do a whole fucking podcast on the shit quality of journalism these days. But back in the day, it was quite good. But yeah, so yeah, I thought like, okay, I'm this white guy who's lived in China. I know China really well. I speak Chinese. I should be able to go out and make a TV show and have people pay me to do it.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Like had to fund the whole thing. It was so stressful. But again, it's like your back's against the wall, and I really wanted to transition into that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's just like no one gave me a break, and I had to put my money where my mouth was. And then at the end of the day, I got a career out of it.
Which is amazing. And I think that's so great that you came from the same pod, basically, with what we were doing. Our first one is, if you use your own money, even though it's like very stressful and it's, you turn every penny, but you turn every penny. And I think that's the great thing. Now, every money that we touch from financiers for our next movie, every commitment we get from, core team members and mentors and collaborators it's just treated as like gold because you know how much it takes to make, a project work on your own money and how you turn every penny and how you can't spend more because otherwise you can't pay rent and then all these things happen. So I think any money you get or any commitment you get, you turn, you just like appreciate so much more. And I think that's was one of the things also why we started PAing, because we want to learn much more as actors as well. Because sometimes, as an actor, you go on a TV set and you arrive there at like 11 a.m. and then you have your day on set and you don't know that, the PAs were already standing there in the cold at 5 a.m. the same day, right? And I think knowing, having literally been through it and, seeing other crew members and what the, struggles are or like the heaviness of the equipment and all these little things that you are just overlooked so quickly, I think make us better filmmakers, make better actors also, because when I come on set on the set now as an actor, I know like how much I appreciate everybody, and I know the lingo, and I know like how fast things have to move, and not just because I want to have my moment here in front of camera, but also because they're trying to get lunch breaks to not go overtime, so I know that the PA can go home at like midnight and not 2 a.m. or something. So I think it's just like all that makes you just a better communicator, and putting your own money in, I think that makes you also a better communicator, and you got to make your own career out of it, which is again our goal. Is like I think it's a good core part to start.
Yeah. And I think too it'll give you a lot of street credit, like
Mhm.
that you did self-finance your first picture and that you put it all together, cuz that shows a lot of creative ability, right?
Yeah.
To be able to dance on a fine
Yeah.
wire,
Yeah.
50 stories above the world,
Yeah.
and
And a lot of trust also.
right.
Yeah.
So okay, so you write the script and you're sitting in Vancouver, you're working 15-hour days, you're coming home, you're writing a script, you've got something that you like
Mhm.
on paper. Who's your first hire? Who's the first person you go to? Did you try to find a producer? Did you try to find a director who shared your vision? Or did you guys direct it yourself?
We did, yeah.
Holy fuck, so you wrote it and directed it yourself.
Yeah, but that was, I think, more out of necessity that we took over everything because it was such a short time, and it was we once we wrote it, we kind of knew exactly what we wanted to, like it was just like also yeah, it was short time, and we knew just exactly how it should look like, and we're like, well, who else we would hire to explain all these things that we can just do it ourselves, and
That's amazing. That
uh,
like you were able to write it.
yeah,
And then you also had the vision in your brain, like this, this scene, this is going to look like this. This is
yeah.
these walking in from here. This is where the light should be. Like you already had this whole idea.
Yeah, because I think how this writing process together started even was Dilar and I, we always had those long, PA days, even if it was separate, shifts or whatever. And then we would come home and have a dinner. We love cooking, so we just like cook something and have dinner. And that's how we would start talking about the characters and how the world could look like and all these things. So before even writing the script, we already knew so much about the world and the characters and their relationships. And then as we put it on paper, we have our concept. And I know there's a lot of great, the Duffer brothers and the Safdie brothers and a lot of the Cohen brothers, a lot of great writer teams out there. And it's always interesting when I watch their interviews and they're like, oh, we write on the same document at the same time. It's like, I could never do that. Dilara and I, we always have one is doing the core skeleton script, and then we give it to the other one. Then that person is, doing dialogue brushes, insert things, mix things, and then gets them back and forth. So you always have fresh eyes on it. And that was our process. And then yeah, as we were writing it, we already knew exactly how it should look like, and that way it was easier to create a shot list and everything. And then I think in the beginning we didn't think of directing it, but it just kind of happened to be. And because we did as actors also a lot of rehearsals on it with ourselves and with the co-actors, that it was clear, we knew the script just inside out because we spent so much time with it, that we were like, it doesn't really matter if we're not in front or behind the camera because we know exactly how the whole thing should look like.
Yeah. Wow. What a project.
Nah. Yeah, it was definitely intense. And then I do have to say, like, even though it sounds now so intense, but we had such an amazing team. Without the team, it would have not been possible. Our DP, Marco Lamera, he's from Italy, and we met him on a short movie that he was assisting and just helping out. And I remember we packed up and we were acting in that short movie. We packed up the end of the day and we started. I didn't talk with him all weekend a lot, even because he was doing his camera stuff. And then I started chatting with him, and we realized that he loved the director of Michael Haneke, who's from Austria, and my one of my favorite directors is Luca Guadagnino, who's from Italy, and he's worked with him as a trainee once when he was back in Italy. So we had a lot in common, and we talked about Dilara and my project, and we had finished the script at that point. And he was like, "Oh, that sounds so amazing." And again, he was approaching us. He's like, "Let me know, like if you need anything, I'd love to help." And then I think like a week later or something, he was saying, he's like, "Oh, it was so great working with you, and here's my demo and everything." And his demo was a lot of really interesting indie style stuff that he did in Italy. And even though he worked in a lot of TV shows in Vancouver, but he didn't send that stuff. He sent his DP stuff from Italy, and it was so great because we were looking for something that is kind of gritty and that has, those layers that you saw in all old, European cinema. And that's exactly what he brought. And we also knew that this movie is going to be very much a passion project with very, very little payment and, not too long days because we were like, we didn't want to, overwork anybody, but we were like, oh, but it will be a very intense time because it's 12 days. We only have the house for those days. So you gotta get it work. And yeah, so this person came on board, and then Dilara was reaching out to a lot of people that we've worked with in independent, cinema in Vancouver, and people approached us, and that's how we got the crew together. And then David Joshi, he was the what is it called? A video coordinator
Mhm.
on Percy Jackson. He still is doing the shows up in Vancouver, and he was amazing. And he was like, "Oh, during the time that you were shooting, I'm not on Percy Jackson, so I can use all my video equipment." He literally parked his whole camera gear and the video coordination, gear truck in the backyard of the house, and we could just take everything in. And he was supporting us throughout those days. It was incredible. Like, I don't know, that's why I say, like, it was self-financed, but a lot of sponsoring, which made the movie so much greater and grander
Mhm.
because he was just borrowing us for a week. For him, it, wasn't a big problem because he wasn't on the show anyways.
Mhm.
But, that's like so much responsibility that give up there to those kids. And same with he also became an executive producer on the film then because he had like a whole props house and he was doing a lot of independent movies. He was like, "Kids, just take whatever you need, just take pictures so I get it back." And also he was amazing that we got like all that out of the movie, and that was just the movie increased in its value so much by all these great supporters and helpers.
That's incredible. So it's a good lesson for anyone out there. Like it's good to have friends, right?
Yeah.
Like it's good to work your way up in the film industry so that when you are ready to make something
Yeah.
and put your name on it,
Yeah.
you've got a whole village behind you of supporters and people who care and people who want to help and people who can lend you something or borrow this or work for free to do this, and just give you a bit of time here and there, give you a little bit of guidance. I mean, it sounds like the time you guys spent, doing independent film and PAing in Vancouver, that
Yeah.
all those amazing people that you met, all those amazing creatives, they were able to add a lot of value to your own project.
100%, 100%. And I think also passion is contagious in a way. I think if you are putting and we said it from the start, it's like because we knew that it's such a a shoestring budget. You're like, we never want to have anybody giving more than we do. So we were like, if we want to give, we want to have the crew give like 100% of passion and just their art into the movie, we have to give at least 150%. So it was never, sitting on your laurels. And, and it was also never about the titles. It was never like, I also never call myself a director or anything. It's like, oh, we did that movie, but I'd rather call myself an actor and a storyteller because I'm like, I don't know, we just, we did it, but it's really about all these little parts because a director gives the directions for all these little parts, but all these little parts like the art design and the cinematography and the sound and the score, like all of these little parts really make the movie.
Yeah, but at the same time, if the movie doesn't fly, it's the director that takes it.
Yes.
So, you are the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
And
True,
you are
true.
responsible for every single thing that happens. So,
Yeah.
it's great to have all these creative collaborators, but at the end of the day, you have to say yes, no.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, and often it's like you're red or blue, and you're like, I don't know, red.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like someone said being a director is the most insane job in the world because you have to answer 100 questions a day.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't even matter if you're wrong,
Yeah.
but you have to not delay answers because if you delay an answer, you delay the entire thing.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if you do something wrong, you can always go back and fix it later.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you just have to be able to make quick decisions to give people confidence around you that you actually know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you start delaying and humming and hawing, I don't know, like blah blah blah, then
Yeah.
everyone around you starts to be like, these fucking people don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like this thing's gonna be a mess. And then that negativity creeps into everyone. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a wild ride because it's a very like 12 days is great,
Yeah.
but it's a very like again, you're tightrope walking and you really have to keep on a straight path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very much so.
Which only makes me so much more envious of the fact that you guys were able to pull this off and put this whole thing together and do it, in really like your third year of being in North America in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I think also because we got to learn so much in the works that we were doing and the jobs that we were jumping around in. I think that helped a lot. And then just also meeting amazing people that helped out. I think that was a big thing. And just also being always never wanting to be comfortable. I think that's also a big thing. I think once we felt stuck or like, oh, we're just spinning around the same thing, or we're not moving anything forward, then we were like, okay, it's time to change something drastically, like now. Yeah. So I think that was also one of the things for making the movie is like, you got to take it in your own hands. And worst case, it doesn't work, whatever. It was an experiment. We have our own money in it, so nobody gets hurt
Yeah.
except us and our ego maybe.
There's a great line by someone, I can't remember who it was, but he said, like, as an artist, you're constantly chasing discomfort
Yes.
because once you get comfortable, you lose the creative spark.
Yeah.
You constantly have to be uncomfortable. You constantly have to be kind of pushing the envelope or pushing your levels of comfort, and that's where the creation happens.
Yes.
And if you're not doing that, then you're just recycling old things that you've been dealing with for years, right? You're not
Yeah.
creating something new. And again, it's that chasing of discomfort, I think, where the magic happens.
That's so true. And then there's somebody told me this really great saying in Vancouver or in Canada in general, because they have these beautiful native tribes. And they were saying back in the days, the native tribes, they would go and create, find a river or find like a lake or something where they had water and could get fish and go fishing. And then they would start building a little village there. And then they would keep a couple people there to develop into a bigger village, but then the rest would move on. So once they got comfortable, once they finished the little village, then they would move on. Now you would think, why wouldn't the whole family stay there, have a nice life, like a nice little village, have enough fish and water, and just chill there? But they wouldn't. They would like move on to the next and the next. First off, they would expand, and there would be more villages and become towns and cities. But also they always seek for that uncomfort. And I think that's it's just such a good metaphor to it kept growing and they kept building those villages. And I think that's very beautiful because you could stay there and you'd be happy in your little bubble maybe, but why not expand more? And I think that opened our minds a little bit when we moved from Austria to Vancouver the first time, because in Austria, everything, it's much smaller. It's a very small country. It's very like the social system is amazing. The political system is really great. If you don't work, you get support from the city. If you get retirement, you get like, there's a lot of really great support. I think Vienna was voted the second best city in the world to live in 2021 or something.
Probably right behind Vancouver.
Probably.
Yeah.
And it was like, and people are like, why would you go? It's like, you have like, it's safe there. You have your family there. It's like literally, like, it doesn't make sense to go anywhere else, honestly. And it really, like, logically doesn't make sense. It's really a stupid idea. But I think it's if you seek that other thing that you maybe not able to get in that country. And again, when we moved to Vancouver, it was just such an eye-opening moment because like, oh, I always thought the world was like this, and I had certain views on like on cultures, and I had certain views on like just the world in general. And then I moved into a different country, different continent, and I learned so much, and my worldview expanded so much. Same when we both moved to LA. I think that, again, you learn so much about people, and I think that just you grow as a human. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's great.
The key thing about the United States, and this is my takeaway, and I'm not from the United States. I've only lived in LA for 2 years, and I'm on the same visa you're on.
Amazing.
So I always like to say, like, the United States and Los Angeles specifically is a fucking mess, right? And it is absolute chaos all the time. But it's within that chaos that the magic happens. So whether you're talking about the great entrepreneurs of the United States who build up great companies, or whether the great artists or musicians or storytellers, something is created in that chaos that is not replicated in other countries all around the world. So like, I have one of my best friends. He's from New Zealand, and he's a filmmaker. And I tell him, like, you got to come to the U.S. He's like, I can't come to the U.S. It's too crazy. Like, I watch on TV all the time. The U.S. is a fucking joke. Like, whatever's going on in Washington, D.C. and all these riots and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
And like, you can't just stay in New Zealand, or you can't just stay in Austria and be in this comfortable place where everyone's taken care of, because the magic doesn't happen there.
Yeah.
The magic happens where things are going absolutely crazy all the time. That's where the conflict is. That's where the energy comes from.
I 100% agree. And when we came here, people called it the Wild West. And we were like, that sounds mysterious. I like it. But it's very true. Like it's a wild west because also everybody has to survive in their own way. We talked about side jobs before. In Canada, you still have sort of support if you are not able to work or you have, anything happens. Here it is very much so because people on different visas, on different cultures, different, jobs, and companies close and companies open and things are sometimes moving so fast. So it's really like, if fittest survives or like, you find your way to survive, whatever it is. And it's like such a roller coaster ride. And I think that's really, like you said, domestic chaos where, things also thrive because again, you're pressed against a wall or you're like, okay, if I can't do this because I'm restricted or I'm not able to do it or, things have been changing in, the landscape, then I have to find a different way how to get there or I have to, like grow or like I have to build something to get there. I mean, all these great companies that created, like you said, entrepreneurships, but also, people that invented stuff, they often got there because it was a lack of something. I had a lack of light, and so I invent the light bulb or whatever it is, right? There's a lack of something, or there's like a mess, and in that chaos, like you said, there's something that you an urge to create something.
Absolutely. How old are you, by the way?
We just turned 25.
So that's a pretty mature attitude for a 25-year-old. Just like, because like it usually takes people decades to learn that, right? Like to learn to embrace the chaos, to learn to embrace the discomfort and all these things and let that feed your creativity. So like for you guys to already have a feature film under your belt and to be able to understand and embrace all that discomfort and chaos and know that that's where the magic happens. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So what's your movie about?
So the one that we just did, it's about two sisters that you reunite at their father's home because he just, not disappeared, but he just like died and nobody knows quite why. And so they get together. One sister's coming from Italy, one is coming back from France, and they basically rip open old wounds and they discover a lot of family trauma that has been there. And both are trying to figure out who's gonna get the property because nobody knows who it was inherited to. And there's a lot of, we call it like a cat and mouse game in the house of a dead man because the boyfriend or the partner of one of the girls is coming and the other sister doesn't know about it because he wants to move in, and so he gets hidden in all the different places in the house. So it's this whole, it's a little bit, like having what is this called when you are like the puppet master? That's what it's called. You have a little dollhouse and you have all these little dolls in it and the puppet master moving them around. That's really what it was because again, that we had like those very intimate characters and they had, all of them had traumatic experiences and all of them had to navigate within that house that they're kind of locked in like a cage. And in the end of the movie, one sister has like a lot of mental um not disabilities, but there's like a lot of psychological thrill going on, a lot of psychological disturbances, and the other sister is trying to take the house and everything away from her. So there's a lot of shifting in personalities also until in the end. um
Sounds like a great character-driven story.
yeah, very much,
Yeah.
yeah. And
And what was your distribution like in the United States? Who did you distribute with?
so our sales reps are Gravitas Ventures. They took over the North American release. That was just in August, and we have it right now out on Amazon Prime and on Apple TV, Fandango, Comcast, and so on. We even have it on Blu-ray and DVD, which was very exciting for us. Even though everybody's like, print is dead, but it's like I want a DVD, a hardcover in my hand.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was released with them, and they were amazing. And again, our mentor Michael Goy and Brian Goldberg, who is also mentors of ours, helped us through the journey. And right now we're in conversation with internationals, so we don't know about that yet. And hopefully get it into mid Europe and maybe even New Zealand, Australia on that side as well.
That's good. Hopefully Amazon will pick it up maybe because if it's already on Amazon here, sometimes they pick up the international. Like all my shows are on Amazon, and once they started doing well here, they just took it like in all for all the territories.
Oh, amazing.
So like people watch my show, like it's great too because like someone will write you on Instagram, be like, I'm living in Dublin and I just watched your show on Amazon Prime. It's like, oh, that's great.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
It really is like a global world, and content and storytelling really is global. So it's wild to see like where people catch your show and on what platform and where they live, and
Yeah.
that's part of the excitement, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And often it was like also when it was just released in North America, because we were like, it goes on Amazon, but it's not like SVOD release yet. So it's just and we were like, okay, we'll see, where it will be, and we had the links to send to colleagues and so on. And then a friend of ours was like, oh, it's on the main page for Amazon right now, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. So it's those little things.
Yeah, that's great. So, um, one movie down.
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
Right into the next because we can't sit around.
No.
But we even since a year already have that script in our pocket. Now we just did revisions, and and building more and more onto it. It's a psychological thriller, psychological horror. We call it terror tale. It's really about a nurse who goes up to the Austrian Alps to take care of an impaired woman, and then gets captured in a psychological nightmare.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's nice.
yeah.
Bringing the home country back.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you guys will have the chance to film in Austria,
Yes,
spend some time with family.
exactly, exactly. It's a whole bundle, exactly, a whole bundle vacation deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in the development and funding process right now, and we have some amazing filmmakers because of the first movie jumping onto and trusting us with the second one, and jumping on board. And yeah, I think it's gonna be really amazing. It's gonna be a very original project, and I think it's gonna be definitely like a next step from stepping up from their Lion. But I think it's gonna be great.
And you both co-wrote it, and you're both going to co-direct it.
Exactly,
Yeah, okay.
exactly. That's it. And
So this is part of the brand now, right?
yeah, I guess, yeah, I guess so. But we'll definitely we'll star in it. We do have roles again, but it will be a much bigger ensemble this time than with the last one. And yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like, look at the Duplass brothers, like their first project that they did together. They acted in it, and then as they grew in their career, and like that project was like so indie. Like they did it, I think, for 2K. And it kind of grew their career into something, but they're still producing together. They're still doing stuff sometimes together, and then they act in separate projects, and it's a really great thing. And I think Dilara and I want to do the same. That we have like our acting careers are always separate because we don't want to have a career as a twin actor. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
As actors, we work on very different projects, and then we have our stuff that we are writing together and producing together.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's exciting, and the fact that you guys are writing this stuff too, and you know the script so intimately. I think that's so helpful when you want to like tell these stories and even act in them and
Yeah.
and direct in them, because it's like the whole thing from start to finish, backwards, forwards, and you live it,
Yeah.
and it becomes like a part of you.
Absolutely. And I think it also helps is a little bit approaching it like a theater play. You know the whole play, you know every line by heart, and usually also the other characters' lines. If somebody drops something, you know where to pick it up. Because it's live and you don't want to mess up. And I think that's the same with how we approach film, like just know everything by heart, turn the paper, back and forth, and know every corner, because then you're prepared, and anything can come your way.
Yeah. So, I mean, how has the education of filmmaking been for you guys now as you set up your second feature?
Mhm.
Because, like you've got to deal with financiers, you've got to deal with completion bonds, you've got to deal with actors. You might have to put down deposits to keep actors on, or directors in play. You might have to find a cinematographer. A cinematographer might leave the project. You might have to bring in another. Like, people just don't understand how fluid
Yeah.
the filmmaking process is, and how some people are attached to a project and then they leave and another person comes. And as directors and writers, you guys are kind of at the helm trying to keep all this stuff together. I always talk about like the most frustrating thing in the world is herding cats, right? Like, if you see these people herding like cows or herding sheep and stuff like that, but imagine having like 100 cats that you've got to get behind a fence. Like, it's not happening, right? They're all going to run in every direction. So I always say, like, filmmaking or storytelling, making television is always like herding cats. Like, you're trying to get everything in the right direction, but then everything is just going all over. It's really stressful. Like, kudos to you guys for taking it on and making it your careers. But I'm just wondering, like, what that education process has been like for you as you guys are now going into your second project.
Mm-hmm. That's great, and I love that metaphor. I will see that for sure. Some crazy cats going everywhere. It's. I think we learned a lot from the first one, and I think going into the second one, luckily a lot of great people saw the movie. And through our mentor Michael, but also through other amazing people in the industry, we got to connect to more people, and another great. Like, I think you find the right people along the way, and that's really what makes it and breaks it. And yes, like you said, it is always a shifting a puzzle piece kind of thing. Um, but I think as long as you know that you drive the project, and you know that you will do whatever it takes to get to the next step, and keep moving it forward, then you always know that the right people will come on board, and it doesn't feel. And also, I think we are just because also coming. I think it's rooted in our nature or genetically that in Austria it means a lot. Like, a handshake means something. If we shake somebody's hand, you don't have to sign a contract. It will get done, or it will.
Not here.
I know, we learned that. We learned it the hard way. It's like, what? A handshake just still doesn't mean you're coming? Or
Yeah.
no, it is like in Austria, we always grew up that way. And a handshake really means something. So also in this regard, we treat everything like making our projects a handshake means something. And um, knowing that it is such a such a moving process, I think you can still navigate how you make the project happen and that you get your people on board, and also trusting. I think a lot of it is also trust that the right people will come on board and will stick and it will find its way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big piece. But again, we've connected with so many amazing people that are part of this project now that we didn't know when we did the first movie, and that we just got to know now this last year, really being in LA.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. So do you guys have, I mean, have you guys lined up any specific financing? You guys have any like dates for shooting yet that are kind of planned?
Um. Yeah, we want to shoot next early next year, so March, April-ish, like more springish time. It's not really, fixed or on paper. But that's what we were planning for and going for. And for Day of a Line, we were also sometimes very tight to our shooting dates, but we got everything done. It's good. I think it's good to have a deadline because then even if it gets, you have something to work towards too. If you just keep it open, oh, we'll do it whenever, it's gonna be, like it's never gonna happen.
Never happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think having that is really important. So we do have our deadline, and we have amazing people on board that help us with financing and structuring it right now at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it takes. Frank Isaac, who's an amazing mentor of ours as well, is part of the project. And he's been helping us out so much. So I think again, having so many great people just to learn from, because also his career is just incredible.
Yeah, he's got like 30 years in film finance.
Yes, he's film finance, but then also as a producer himself. We watched some interviews with him being 30 and producing this whole movie in, I don't know, Afghanistan or somewhere crazy, like by himself with kids. And I'm just like, how did you do that? And it's crazy because when you watch his interviews, he's been so wise and so calm even when he was 30. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. He's the same way now. And
He's coming on in a few days.
how amazing he is. That's amazing. I'm glad. Yeah, he is really fantastic. And again, having those amazing people that also we get to learn from, because he has such an amazing career and he has such a great reputation and just so much knowledge, and it's such a spot on eye on what he's looking for. And I think we're very grateful that you know, w- because in the end of the day, when you make a project, there's not everybody's gonna love the script, or not everybody's gonna love and get the story maybe, or the vision that you're going for. And if you find those people that really get it and that want to, be part of it, that's really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's great when you don't have to fight people
Yeah.
that are working on your project.
Yes.
So I mean, is there anything here that we haven't talked about that you wanted to bring up? Because as we kind of start towards moving towards the end of this, like
Yeah.
what do you want to put out into the world that we haven't talked about yet?
Let me think about it. That's a great one. We talked about the movies, which was like the most exciting part for sure.
Yeah.
Um, did ours do anything else that you can think of?
It's hard, right? To like, I mean, like you guys are running a big project. Like
Yeah.
making movies is hard.
Yeah.
It's so exciting that you've taken on this amazing challenge and that you're, dedicating your lives to this process.
You know what I would want to say? I would be even more excited to see it on the acting side as an actor, to see even more, and we've seen more of it now. That's why I say even more. International talent being in front of the camera.
Mhm.
There's we have so many amazing actors, and again, now we see more in features, like people with accents. Like a friend of ours, she was just in a Superman movie, and she is from Portugal, so she has a little bit of an accent. It was really great to see her in that as one of the leads, though. And there was another, like we see more and more actors like coming in, but not just being stereotyped for your accent. I think coming from Austria, having a natural accent, and we do for auditions, and we've booked American roles, but it just takes 10 more hours of work of just getting rid of the accent that you have naturally. I think that would be beautiful to see more international talent, and more accents and more languages in movies. I think that's my big hope or my big wish.
I think that's great, and it's true because I also think like a lot of the big international projects, like if you think of like Game of Thrones, for example, HBO, they did a lot of casting here in Los Angeles, but they also did a lot of casting out of London, and they tried to find a lot of people out of Europe
Great.
for those roles because they were filming in Northern Ireland and they filmed in Dubrovnik, Croatia, and in Spain and in Portugal. So they filmed in all these great international locations. So they wanted to have a lot of different looking people play all these important roles.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, if you can afford it,
Yeah.
and it's expensive to do that, to travel around and pick people from all the different parts of the world. Although you can probably find them all here in Los Angeles
I
pretty
just
easily too.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been on so many projects where, Americans were taught to do, a German accents. Like I could tell, 20 of my colleagues that are as talented are, from Germany that could do the same accent. But it's, a lot of it is, it's just such a moving, piece. But yeah, I think I would love to see that, because we've come a long journey with acting, and different roles for different genders, different roles for different colors, like all of that. But it's still, I think there's still like a big push to do, and I think that would be great to see.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you guys have come from an international location, and come to Hollywood, and now you're trying to tell international stories. Like
Yeah.
this thing in Austria, where this nurse goes and
Yeah.
gets caught in this psychological thriller in the Austrian Alps or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's you're going to take an entire American audience,
Yes.
and you're a European audience too, but essentially like you're going to take this whole like global audience to this small town in Austria where this psychological thriller takes place,
Yeah.
and being able to shoot on location like that, and being able to like bring an audience to a place that you're so familiar with,
Yeah.
and to kind of, it's almost like telling a story about like going home almost. And I
Yes.
think that's just so beautiful, that like, especially when an international filmmaker has that opportunity to kind of go home and tell stories for that same global audience.
I agree, 100% agree. And I think like you see it more and more, because we shoot everywhere else now in LA right now. I think that's why you see more of it as well. And I really love it. It's great. But yeah, like you said, more diverse stories and cultures, and it's very intriguing because and you can put it in all, commercial American stories, even like Midsummer, the horror movie. They shot that, it didn't shoot it in Sweden, but it played in Sweden. It was really great to see that culture because I didn't even know about it a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's true. Filmmaking is becoming more global, and it's changing a lot.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. I mean, like, have you noticed how many less jobs there are here in LA? Like, I know you guys have probably only been here a short period of time, but
Yeah.
like I've been coming here for like 20 years for work, and but I've only lived here now for the last 2 years. But it's funny how there's less and less people working in film and television here. Like all those day jobs and all the crew and stuff like that. A lot of that's moved to New Mexico because Netflix has a big place in New Mexico. A lot of it's moved to Atlanta because that's where Disney does all their Marvel movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And then of course a lot of people moved to Vancouver, Toronto, and so like it's really interesting that very few movies are actually made in Los Angeles
Yeah.
anymore, and so many people are leaving the city because they don't want to deal with the traffic, and they don't want to deal with the chaos of living here
Yeah.
if they can make movies somewhere else.
Somewhere else. So
Yeah.
yeah. No, I do agree. I think again, we've been here for a pretty short time. Like, I mean, it's now almost, it's 1.5 years. So it's like my opinion is probably very relative to it, but I would say it's definitely changed over the last year, even with, like a lot of changes we had with like AI and new technologies and stuff. I wouldn't say there's less work necessarily, it's just different work.
Yeah.
And I think it's always where you look also, because I mean, I think for acting, they're still casting out of here and then they shoot anywhere else. So as an actor, it does make a big difference because I need to be here, and with self tapes that we have, everything after COVID was self tapes. So you can audition from anywhere in the world, which is really great. Was a big advantage. But I think a lot of our friends are technicians and craftsmen that worked for years and years and years here in LA on the big studio lots of, Warner Brothers and Paramount, and there's been movie after movie after movie and project after project. Well, it's now slowed down so much because there hasn't been so many great tax incentives and support here locally. There you see it a lot. Like when we talk with our friends, they're like, this that, or they have to travel to Atlanta or whatever it is to go somewhere else to shoot. So I think that has definitely changed a lot, and I hope it's
Yeah.
gonna come back.
What do you think about, as an actor yourself? Like, where do you see this whole like self taping thing come in? Because I've chatted with a lot of actors,
Yeah.
and and it's interesting to me because as an actor, you read the words on a script, and you make decisions, and you interpret what you think that character would how they would sit and how they would talk, and the rhythm of their voice and where they would look, and it's really important to get feedback from a director, because the director also has their own ideas,
Yeah.
and then the director might say try it like this or try it like that, and then you make an adjustment or you make a change to help the director with their vision, and then you change your performance to what they suggested. And I feel like that's such a beautiful process
Yeah.
because that's the give and take of this creative industry that we work in. And I know that some directors, they never give notes to actors, but a lot do, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, with the casting world that we live in now, and you mentioned since COVID, everything's been self-taping, right?
Yeah.
So your agent will send you and be like, "Hey, I've got a casting. It's a movie. Here's your paragraph. You got to, and this is the general gist of the story." But you're usually only given like a page, so you can't even read the whole script. So
Yeah.
you don't know your character. You don't know what's going on. So you just kind of you line up your camera, you on your tripod, you're sitting in your bedroom or at your desk or in a studio like this,
Yeah.
and you deliver a few takes. You take the best one or the best two, and then you send it away.
Yeah.
And you don't get any feedback. There's no give and take with the director.
Mm.
You're not. I feel like you're not practicing your art.
Mm.
You're just delivering a performance to a camera,
Yeah.
and you're getting nothing back. And I'm not an actor, and I don't pretend to be, but I would find that so frustrating. But I feel also like this is the industry standard now.
Mm.
No one wants to spend time really working with an actor to craft a performance or even work with an actor in an audition.
Mm-hmm.
People just want to, and I bet you if you send a 2-minute audition on an MOV or MP4 file, and they're probably only looking at the first 10 or 20 seconds and be like, no,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
and that, to me, that's fucking mental. that you can have an audition and not even get to interact with a real person,
Yeah.
and then not even get any notes or any kind of feedback. You're just sending this stuff out blind. And I've had a few actors that really hate this. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, where you see that give and take with a director, or where you see that as being like just the state of auditioning these days, if you have a comment.
Yeah, no, I love that. You put so many good pinpoints right in there. I think a couple of things actually. I think I like when I talked with a lot of people, once we moved to Vancouver and then also LA, it has always been self-tapes because it was like COVID. And so we grew up in just self-taping, auditions really. We had a couple here and there that were in person, mostly commercials though. So I can be like I just know from back in Austria, theater auditions and stuff, how that felt in person. It was amazing because you can interact with a person 100%. But I'm very grateful for the self-tape option because I have talked with other people, they have, have experienced both sides and they were like, whatever job you do, you have to, switch jobs so much more because sometimes you have an audition that has to be done like now and, you have to drive over, get yourself ready, kind of live out of your car and you have, you can't, then you drop the job or you drop the shift and they fire you and you find another job. I think that whole process has become much more smooth because now you get an audition and it might be still done the next day, but I can come home after my, day of work and I can still do it at midnight. It doesn't matter.
15 hours of being a PA, and you got to come home and do an audition.
Yeah, put some makeup on, don't you circle those rings. Yeah, no, I think so in that regard I'm very grateful because you can be a little bit more flexible maybe. I do agree though, like I love in-person interactions. If you would have asked me to do it on Zoom, we could have done it, right? But it's a different energy and it's a different pace and it's a different I also think every person, and that's what I talked with some casting people and they also said that it's interesting. They can audition many more people now, but the callbacks are very different now because so many people are in the in-person callbacks so different than on their tape. And it makes like when in before if they would, send somebody in for the callback, they would know what they get because they already saw it in person before. Now, because when you get a self-tape, you don't know if that person taped it 20 times or just 3 times or if they taped it in a studio with an acting coach or what it is, right? So therefore it can be so different in the callback. And I think that's a big change for casting directors and so on, I think.
It's hard, right? Because like when I decided I wanted to do a podcast, and this is not a audition or acting, but
Yeah.
when I decided I wanted to do a podcast, I decided I'm only going to meet people face to face.
Yeah, great.
But that's going to reduce the number of podcasts I can do
Yeah.
because people don't want to travel to LA who don't live here. And then so right away I was like, okay, most people aren't going to be available.
Mhm.
But there's so much good energy
Yeah.
when you meet someone and you have a face-to-face conversation with them and you sit there and you look at them in the eye and you exchange energy with them because we're all exchanging energy all around the world. And that's the beauty of being human. But like when you lose that human to human experience, I really feel like the conversation or the connection that you make with another human being suffers massively.
100%.
Yeah. And I just want to say that's why I love doing these in person because I get so much more from it.
Yeah.
And if I was casting, I would also want to meet that person face to face,
Yeah.
because you can be super confident in a role on camera, but then if you come in to meet me, maybe you're bumbling and nervous and you're all over the place, but for that 30 seconds on camera in your audition, you nailed it.
Yeah.
But then if you have to repeat that performance in a room with 50 people and 3 cameras on you and a director sitting with 4 screens around them, like you might choke up and get really nervous. And
Yeah.
if you can't perform in front of 4 or 5 people in a room sitting behind a desk,
Yeah.
like, how are you going to be when it starts to really cost money per minute on a set?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that always kind of irks me a little bit.
That's 100% true. And I
Yeah.
think also, again, like you can, I think actors became better in watching their performances because now they have to, decide between the takes and everything. But I agree, like the in-person energy is so different. And it's like, it's a little bit like, when you, as a filmmaker, you send emails to financiers or want to, connect with them. And you're like, I can send you all the pitch decks and the script and everything, but let me have a person one-on-one because I can really tell you what this story is about. And it will be so different if I tell you now in here in person. Same as an actor, I can send you all these tapes and you will see like a really great performance because I maybe polished it with my acting coach or whatever it is, or I did it like this my 20th take. Or I say like let me be here in person because then we can also play and you can give me some notes and we can polish it in that way.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, that's true. But personally, I'm grateful that I can do it more flexible that way.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I'm just thinking back now, like every time someone ever gave me money to make something,
Yeah.
I met them face to face,
Okay.
shook their hand,
Yeah.
looked them right in the eyes and said, I'll give you 8 episodes, 10 episodes, no problem. Like, we'll do this, right?
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have gotten any of it.
I 100% agree. It's just there's just more commitment and trust, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild how the industry's changing. So, no, it's exciting. I mean, you guys are kind of growing up into this whole new space that we all see as kind of changing from a more old school perspective.
I 100% agree. Same with distribution, everything is like, there's so many things that are changing at this point. And it feels a little bit like back in the 70s when, the studio and independent film scene shifted a lot and
The
had
70s,
the 70s, yeah, back in the 70s.
like 30 years before you were born.
Yeah, exactly the time I'm talking about. But it's just like through Michael Goy, our mentor, we learn about a lot about the movies in that time, and it was and also about the system because he shares so much, and it's just like interesting to kind of observe all these times, and there has always been shifts and changes in Hollywood, like so many. I mean, financial crisis, but then also just like even going from silence movies to sound movies, all these little changes that make movies what they are in the industry, what it is today. So I think using the time and again the 70s, I love the 70s, but there have been so many great independent filmmakers that came out of the time because they made the movie so cheaply they were acquired then by studios that the system didn't work that much anymore.
Sure.
Same here. I think using the time because it's a plain field at this point. Nobody knows what's, selling because there has been so many streamers and, distribution has changed so much. So knowing, it's a plain field for everybody and you use the time to maybe explore and be just very innovative because now is the time to do it because nobody knows what's going to hit and what not. I think that's how Dilar and I at least see it. We're like, we gonna draw on canvas and see if it works the way we imagine it to be.
For me personally, I always love filmmakers and storytellers that consistently produce.
Yeah.
So like, because it's great to watch a movie from some great director who only makes one movie a decade,
Yeah.
and it's celebrated when it comes out, and everyone's like, oh my god, he or she made this movie, and they haven't made a movie in 10 years, and
Yeah.
everyone's waiting for it. That's exciting, right?
Yeah.
But the people that I really respect are the people that are making like a movie a year.
Yeah.
And not not every single one is going to be good. Not every single one has to hit, but it's just about that consistency of like, every year it can in May, I'm going to have a film, and there's people who have done that for 30 years straight.
Yeah.
And these are the people that I love because then when you go to one of their movies, you can kind of see like, what they produced last year, what they produced 5 years ago,
Yeah.
what they're producing this year, and it's just that consistency of putting out content, which I think is beautiful, and I think, and if they can do it independently, which I think is the only way to do it,
Yeah.
then more power to them, and I find like the people who are most productive are actually the people who are able to self-finance or sorry to arrange their own financing independently,
Yeah.
because then you can work on your own schedule. And that to me is the most important thing about storytelling.
Yeah.
Because if you're waiting for 18 months, if you have a script and you've got a few actors and you're directing, and you have to wait 18 months for financing,
Yeah.
you're going to fucking lose your mind, right?
Yeah.
But if you can somehow find these pockets of money and arrange things the way you want it to, then you're working on your own schedule. And you
Yeah.
know when you're going to take vacation, you know when you're writing, you know when you're shooting, you know when you're promoting. And then all of a sudden you've got a life
Yeah.
and you've got a career instead of just like bouncing around like a pinball between financiers and distribute and all these people that just want you to keep moving your schedule around. I think
Yeah.
that's the most insane feeling in the world.
I 100% agree, and there's two things to that. So there's this really good book. It's called The Happiness Advantage, and it talks a little bit about that as well, where they say, like everything in our life, we always try to gain control in some way. And if we don't have it, and a lot of creatives don't have that, I don't know when I work the next time, when I get employed again, or when I, can make this next project because I need financing from another person. That gives us a lot of, insecurities maybe, but also a lot of sometimes not like it rejects happiness from us because we can't control when we're gonna do the thing we love doing. And I think taking it in your own hands is so valuable because then you know exactly, now I can do these things and have something to work towards to, and I have something to look forward to also.
Yeah.
So that's a big point. There was something else I wanted to say before, but I forgot it, but it'll come back for sure.
Now, like, because like when I was making TV shows, for example, if I was making like a 10 episode series, I would start filming in January, February, March, April, and go through the whole year up until October, November. But I knew that for the next year, I needed to start pitching in January while I was shooting the show I was already on.
Yeah.
And I knew that January, February, March, I had to lock down what I was doing for the next year
Yeah.
because I knew it would take 6 months of pre-production while I was filming the show I was doing
Yeah.
because we were in production, and then I could use the downtime to do pre-production for the next year. And that's, I made like 50 episodes of TV in 5 years, basically,
That's crazy.
just by trying to stay ahead of that kind of curve
Yeah.
and managing my own time in that way because I was able to produce and direct myself.
Yeah.
So I was able to really kind of control it and control the schedule. And that gave me so much more freedom, and it gave me a much better quality of life than pretty much anyone else I knew that was in the industry who was constantly sitting around waiting for work and waiting for people to finally pay them.
Yeah.
Because I was able to get into the rhythm of how people finance things.
Yeah.
And then I was able to figure out how those timelines work.
Yeah.
And television is different than films, but once you kind of understand that, I feel like it's a smoother process.
I 100% agree, and I think that's what I want to say. It came back what I was saying before, which is still the same. What kind of
We locked it in. Yeah.
It triggered. But is that it's about a body of work, creating a body of work. I think Robert Rodriguez said it so nicely. Like when you create a body of work, it's about just heading into the next one because you sometimes don't know. You just like usually. Most of the time, you don't know when you create a golden thing, right? Usually, people on the outside will tell you or will then recognize it as one, but you think every project you're doing is got to be, good. You must believe in it, otherwise you wouldn't do it, right? But you don't know if it's going to resonate with the audience or if it's going to become something or it's going to sell or not. Sometimes super random, and I think it's just about the body of work, creating the next one, because you said like those people that make every year, every second year, another movie is very much so. It's like just keeping, and I think also with every project you learn so much. So it's like honing that craft and building more, and because you said you learn so much about financing and how to create that concept that you could be in production on those and start pre-production on the other ones. I think that's so great. I think Dilara and I, because for the first one we used our own money, and we learned a lot as a PA about the physical production part of it. So for the next one we were like, okay, we will give over more tasks so we don't have to do everything, but we know these parts now, so we can be good communicators in that sense. But now we want to learn how is it to get financing from other parts, and how can I learn from that. I think there's so much as a filmmaker in general, as a storyteller, as an actor also. I think it's so good to know the business side of it too.
You have
To
to.
have like have more control, but also just I think it's just to make it a career really, and not just a hobby that happens here and there.
And also too, the more you know and the more you understand the financing and the more you understand the way it works, the less you'll get ripped off.
Yeah,
And make no mistake, there's plenty of people in this town and every other town that are waiting
yeah,
to just rip you off.
yeah, yeah. It's knowledge, just having the knowledge and just understanding it. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, you and your sister are on an incredible journey.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were able to come. So, for people that want to watch the movie that you've already put out, A Day in the
A Day of a Lion.
A Day of a Lion. So they can see that on Amazon Prime in the United States?
Yes, correct. And then Apple TV in Canada and in the United States.
Great. And do you have like a website for that movie?
We do have an Instagram page, exactly, which is also called at Day of a Lion
Okay.
movie, I think. Look it up. I think it's movie or film in the end.
And where can we learn more about you and your sister and the work that you guys are doing?
Also, I would say on Instagram, that's where we mostly put our acting work, and but you will also find it on the Day of a Lion Instagram page. .film. Okay, so at dayofalion.film. That's the official one.
Great.
And then for Dilara and me, Dilara's is just at Dilara Foscht. Oh, it's Dilara _ Foscht.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's Bianca Foscht, I think one. But either way, it's just our names. And I think in Instagram, we have it more visually created, and the rest is on IMDb.
Okay, great. I'll put links to all this stuff too on the, yeah, but I just want to let you know, like,
Okay.
the people can find you.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. They can definitely find us.
Any last words before we sign off? It was amazing. You guys are an inspiration.
I wanted to say thank you. I mean, this was so amazing. And again, like, I need another hour to ask you everything about your China journey, because I know so much about your show anyways. And I just thank you for having us and for taking the time. And I think it's all, like I think I always grow when I learn from other people. And I think, yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to do that.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. And just look, so here we have a camera right here in the middle, so people can see we're in the same room.
Oh, great.
Because we don't do a Zoom call and self-tapes. We talk face to face.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for joining me today.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
And then we fade to black, and we're done.